Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's live presentation of the Smarter Way to Desktop Virtualization. My name is Don Grease, and I am the Manager of Sales and Business Development here at Lifeboat Distribution. And Lifeboat is excited today to partner with Quest Software to present you vWorkspace. Many of you know Quest Software for a variety of other data center tools, but Quest is also emerging as the leader in VDI, or virtual desktop infrastructure. And this is an ideal time for you to work with Quest Software and Lifeboat Distribution to introduce vWorkspace to your customers and to profit in this rapidly emerging market. Joining me on the panel today from Quest Software is Damon Tepe, Quest Senior Product Marketing Manager, and thank you, Damon, for joining us today. Now, before we begin the presentation, I do want to let you know that we encourage you to ask questions, and you may do that by answering your questions in the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of the screen. At the conclusion of the presentation, we will get to your questions, and we will answer just as many of them as we have time for. So please do ask questions if you have them. So now we are ready to begin, and it's my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Damon. Let me just get on to Damon's slide deck and give him the ball.
Well, thank you very much. Again, I want to thank everyone for attending today. With no further ado, we'll kind of jump into things. From an agenda perspective, what I plan to cover is kind of a quick overview of desktop virtualization, level set, kind of where we're coming from. Who are some of the key players in the market? What are people looking to do? Why are they looking to virtualize desktops? What are some of the challenges that we've seen to date with desktop virtualization? I'll kind of go into some key points, differentiators to know about Quest vWorkspace, briefly touch on a case study, and then talk a little bit about who to target, what questions to ask, and where to get more information. So let's kind of just dig into kind of the basics of virtualization. The main objective of virtualization is to abstract resources away from the physical so they can be easily moved, managed, replaced. A prime example is the ability to take a server and make it act like multiple servers. Before virtualization, companies stood up separate servers for nearly every application, regardless if that server was being utilized to its fullest capacity. More often than not, these servers were underutilized. For example, the CRM server was running at 58% utilization and wasted valuable space and processing power. Through virtualization, companies are now able to take that server and make it act like multiple servers. And this allows a company to run servers at full capacity while reducing the overall number of servers to operate their IT infrastructure. So again, that's more kind of server virtualization, if you will. And there are three major types. That was kind of server virtualization. Application virtualization provides an application that users, it basically takes it away from the desktop operating system. These applications can be isolated, sandboxed, kept separate from other systems, and then actually streamed or processed in the data center, even though the icon would still be on a particular virtual desktop, for example, or it could be a physical desktop for that matter. And lastly, we kind of get into desktop virtualization. This is kind of an umbrella term for kind of two primary approaches. Virtual desktop infrastructure, I'm sure you guys are familiar with this, VDI. The other is terminal services, which is Microsoft loves to change the names of these things around, so we're all confused and clueless. But they're now calling it remote desktop session host. Each approach has advantages over the other. Organizations are kind of increasingly seeking to take a mixture of the two, primarily to keep costs down. So with VDI, IT departments are able to take a server, dice it into multiple little independent virtual desktops. So they basically take that server, cut it into 40 to 50 desktops, and each one of those is kind of isolated and independent. You can run different applications, operating systems on those virtual desktops. Typically, a particular virtual desktop is dedicated to a user. That user can then customize that desktop. Maybe it's a picture of the family as wallpaper. You can plug in USB devices for syncing. Maybe this is a smartphone. Change screen resolution, colors, all that kind of thing. With Terminal Services Desktop, though, everyone shares the same applications and operating systems. Citrix has been a huge provider of this capability and management capability for many years. One of the problems with this is there's not a whole lot of customizations. It's a cheaper alternative to VDI and possibly a better fit for certain types of users, and we'll kind of get into some of that in a little bit. So I wanted to kind of touch on who are the major players in the market. And they're basically these four. Citrix, they've been in this space for some 10 to 15 years, and as I said previously in the last slide, primarily in this terminal services space. They're heavily leveraging their huge XenApp install base, and XenApp is their management product for terminal services. And their strategy is to use this install base to push their now VDI management product, XenDesktop, which they've basically put XenApp and XenDesktop together and called it XenDesktop now. Citrix has a nice set of features, generally considered to be the leader in this space. Definitely someone worthy to keep an eye out for. Second would be VMware. It's emerged from the server virtualization space and is by far the market leader with their ESX hypervisor. And a hypervisor is just the technology that allows you to make that single server act like multiple servers. Or from a desktop virtualization perspective, takes that server and chunks it up into 15 different virtual desktops. VMware is heavily leveraging their ESX server virtualization install base to push their VDI management product, which is called View. View is VDI only and only runs on VMware's platform, ESX or vSphere. Next, I would say, Quest is in there. We're an emerging player. We don't offer a platform, which we see as a good thing, but we support multiple industry-leading ones, and we'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. Quest supports both VDI and terminal services with a single product, a single management console, and a single access point for users. Lastly, we've got Microsoft as the next major player here. They're basically relying on partners for a complete desktop virtualization story, and their two primary go-to-market partners are us and Citrix. Their goal and directive is really to keep VMware away from the desktop arena, which Microsoft has pretty much owned for many years. Next, we get into kind of why do people want to do this? What are some of the drivers? According to this survey conducted, roughly a year and a half ago or so it's getting a little dated by Enterprise Management Associates, the two biggest drivers for companies to move to desktop virtualization are reducing hardware costs and reducing administration costs. And so the next couple slides, I thought I'd try and illustrate how that can be done in a desktop virtualization sense. So if we take a look at this and we say, here's a nice example, at least from the reducing hardware costs. Let's take an organization that has 1,000 desktops. And so in any given year, 33% of those desktops, assuming they're on a 3-year refresh cycle, which is fairly average, basically they're saying every 3 years we've got to replace these physical desktops from, either they don't work, they can't support the applications we're running on them, or the operating systems become too much of a hog. So in any given year, in a 1,000-person organization, 333 desktops are going to need to be replaced. And using a replacement cost of roughly $1,200, and that would include the physical machine, monitor, keyboard, docking station, and then time to image that machine. This seems to be a fair price for that. So again, in any given year, if 333 of those desktops need to be replaced, that's roughly $400,000 every year, refreshing that hardware. And then keep in mind, too, this is only a 1,000-user organization. And because a desktop virtualization project doesn't really use or need the processing power available on physical desktops, those machines that were up for replacement could be repurposed, and their life could be extended by another 2 years. So, this could essentially save that organization $1 million or so over 3 years, for sure. Another thing that is kind of causing a desktop refresh is Microsoft's new operating system, Windows 7. It's causing a massive desktop hardware refresh because many existing physical desktops don't have the computing power to run that new operating system. And this dilemma has more organizations looking into the possibility of desktop virtualization as a way to deploy Windows 7. So again, when we come back to if an organization can save $800,000 to $1.2 million just in hardware alone, this might be a reason to kind of take a look at desktop virtualizations and take a look and dig into some of the other benefits that we might gain there as well. Something else to consider too as we move on. When we replace those physical desktops that were costing us $1,200 a piece, we're replacing them with less expensive thin clients, and these are roughly $400 to $600. Yes, there are some that are more. There are some that are less, though, too. This basically represents about half the cost of a physical desktop, and this would be in 2 to 3 years when we look to phase out those old physical desktops that are being replaced. So again, just trying to hit home the idea of this, hardware refresh and the huge savings that can be had there from a desktop virtualization perspective. I wanted to kind of touch on the other major driver, which was reducing the administration costs by centralizing data, applications, and operations. By centralizing that stuff, we no longer kind of have to worry about application updates being applied universally across a distributed network, because again, we're replacing that application, installing that application in a central data center. So there is no user has to accept this; it just is. There's no more travel for help desk staff supporting remote or local users, making it much easier to deploy new apps in that centralized fashion. And since vWorkspace has a single management console for the virtual desktop environment, admins have a simple and intuitive interface for kind of everything at their fingertips. And I thought it worthwhile to kind of read a quote from the desktop virtualization lead at AccuData, one of our customers. He says, we don't have the budget of a 10,000-person company, but we have to deliver the same level of service with limited IT staff. VDI gives people a flexible environment for getting the job done. Other solutions we evaluated had limited flexibility and a rigid design and approach and a higher cost. And I think they're kind of referring to VMware and Citrix there. Quest vWorkspace provided cost-effective, seamless integration and support for the Microsoft virtualization stack, together with comprehensive management functionality from a single interface. Unlike solutions that have different consoles for each functional area, which Citrix is known for, Quest vWorkspace allows us to focus on delivering value versus learning and relearning disparate management tools. So again, the goal here was to kind of touch on these two major areas and where we can see returns. There are a bunch of other areas where organizations are looking to desktop virtualization. That could be security. You'll run into a myriad of things, but these two are kind of the big two. So let's kind of dig in a little bit. So given all the good press, and why isn't every organization moving toward wide-scale adoption of virtual or hosted desktops? First, the overall end-user experience is not really where it needs to be. When we're replacing an employee's physical desktop with a virtual one, a company needs to ensure a quality user experience. If web pages, applications, flash content, etc., load slowly and users cannot print locally or plug their smartphone into their new virtual desktop, there could be project mutiny or an outcry for give me my old desktop back. Vendors generally have given this aspect of a project kind of much more attention over the past year and a half, and Quest has spent large on research and development to improve our experience optimized protocol, or EOP, to deliver an industry-leading user experience and try and quell some of these issues and concerns around this area. Second would be the complexity and number of solution components needed. I'm not going to lie to you guys and say that it's not complex, but we've made large strides in vWorkspace to reduce the complexity and support many component options that can be managed through a single interface with automation and some other things we'll kind of touch on in a little bit here as well, to kind of make the the number of these components and the automation of some of the tasks to be done with these components much easier. Third would be the immaturity of management solutions. As with any new technology, companies are kind of in process of maturing solution management. In the next slide, again, we'll dig into a little bit more about what vWorkspace does in this area, but this is definitely an area of concern. Fourth would be kind of promised total cost of ownership reductions not being realized. I think part of this is overhype, part of this is overpriced vendor options trying to take advantage of this market opportunity, immature management solutions, and kind of the initial reaction to something new. Lastly is cost effectiveness. VDI is somewhat expensive, and the market's beginning to realize that VDI is not the only answer out there. Mixing technologies allows organizations to better match user needs with the right cost-effective technology. So moving on, we'll kind of talk a little bit about vWorkspace, and I think at its highest level, vWorkspace can be broken down into kind of three levels of functionality. One is connection brokering. This ensures when users log in, they get routed to the right virtual desktop and have the right applications presented to them. You can kind of think of this as a traffic cop. Next is the management functionality, having flexible tools to properly and efficiently manage the environment. And then lastly, user experience, as I kind of talked about in the previous slide, ensuring a quality user experience on both LAN and WAN. So again, not all organizations are, connected in via a local area network. What about road warriors? Think of branch offices. Boosting that performance at some of those offices that are more on a wide area network is critical as we look to have desktop virtualization be adopted in greater mass. So moving on about Quest vWorkspace, we have the ability to offer one solution for managing and provisioning VDI, terminal services, application virtualization, and Blade PCs. This allows customers to kind of cost-effectively configure the right computing resource for the right type of worker or job to be done, and more of those workers. So if VDI is a good fit for 10% of your organization, okay, great. Terminal services might be a good fit for another 10%. Blade PCs might be another fit for 5% of the organization, and another 10% for application virtualization. The point here is that we're trying to virtualize as much as possible, and again, reduce the administrative burden on the people, the IT staff that has to manage this environment. We are one of the few products out there that give this kind of flexibility in offering VDI, terminal services, Blade PC, application virtualization, all in one product, not multiple products. They're all kind of managed from a single console, kind of at the fingertips of an administrator. Next, being able to efficiently schedule and automate virtual desktop management tasks and operations, such as provisioning or managing power consumption. For example, like with provisioning, a customer can instruct vWorkspace to provision 1,000 new desktops. Maybe we just acquired a company. Maybe we just went through a hiring spurt. And we can tell vWorkspace to do that. That'll automatically build and construct those 100 new desktops versus some of our competitive solutions. They can only create one at a time. And you can imagine the time that would be taken to individually roll out each one of these. A power management example would be, customers can write a rule to turn off desktops after a certain time period. Maybe it's 10 p.m. Or you can write a rule, if a virtual desktop has been untouched in 2 hours, turn it off. There's no sense in wasting the expense to power that machine when no one's going to be using it. It's the scheduling and automation capabilities that I think allow customers to keep that TCO low and manage the environment with less people, less resources. Another key area vWorkspace offers customers is flexibility and really flexibility in platform choice. We have the ability to have people run a VDI platform from Microsoft in Hyper-V, Parallels, Virtuoso containers, or the most popular VMware's ESX. And the beauty here is that a customer is not locked into a certain platform, and this gives customers the option to run Hyper-V and ESX simultaneously. Maybe they want to go out and evaluate Hyper-V, but they don't want to mess with their ESX environment. You can migrate from one to the other without having a kind of a rip and replace expense of the management infrastructure. So, I think this is key, especially as we see more and more platforms kind of rise in popularity. Lastly, our ability to securely and granularly delegate administration among staff eliminates the risk of unauthorized users having access to this area. And this is kind of a key, not talked about area as much, but this is obviously a big differentiator for Quest. We had conversations with numerous analyst groups like Gartner and Burton, and they both revealed to us that both VMware and Citrix have glaring holes in this area. So again, when we talk about decreasing the cost of administration, that almost needs to be coupled with a thought or a nod towards, okay, how are we going to make sure that a help desk person can't go in and change the the applications and structure of this particular desktop for this particular user. We may only want them to reset passwords and do these kinds of things. So in competitive products, you don't have that opportunity. Once you have the keys to the kingdom, you have the keys to everything. With Quest vWorkspace, we can partition out and make sure that some of that IT staff only has access to certain things. And this is kind of a summary slide to, I often like to talk about vWorkspace as having choice and flexibility. And there are kind of 5 levels of independence from which you can choose. So one would be storage management. We work with Microsoft differencing disks, NetApp FlexClone technology, VMware linked clones technology. So again, we're giving flexibility and choice to our customers as to which storage management solution do you want to go with. I think as I touched on earlier in this presentation, we support the major virtualization platforms, whether that's Hyper-V, whether that's ESX and VMware, whether that's Parallels, again, giving that choice and flexibility to a customer. Desktop and application delivery type, we also touched on this, being able to offer VDI, terminal services, Blade PC, application streaming or application virtualization, all from a single product, a single management console, again, choice and flexibility. Display protocols, we work with, we have our own, which is an enhancement to Microsoft's RDP. You can run with RDP. We also hook into Remote FX from Microsoft. And provide some of that WAN acceleration for some of those remote offices and or remote employees. And then kind of lastly, our access devices, and they can be running a myriad of operating systems, and there are a whole host of thin clients that have been tested and known to work with vWorkspace. As a matter of fact, some of the thin client vendors here participate in what we call the vWorkspace Ready program, which means when you buy a thin client from that vendor, vWorkspace comes pre-installed and ready to go. So again, I mean, I think, you know, if I had to put an umbrella in and around vWorkspace and the way I like to talk about vWorkspace, it's really offering choice and flexibility to the market. And when you're in a new market and there's a lot of different avenues to take, you know, having that flexibility and not getting locked into this is the only way that I can do desktop virtualization is a good thing. So that kind of wraps up talking about the product a bit. Now I want to kind of talk a little bit about the competition and their products and what they're bringing to the market. I often get asked by my own sales force, you know, what are the 3 things that we do better than the competition? You know, I think it's important to understand that these bullets are true to the best of our knowledge today, but, you know, the market moves quickly, so, you know, some of these could become dated here soon. It really depends on the vendor. So let's take a look at the top 3. One of the biggest knocks against VMware is there's no terminal services support. It is VDI only. And so, as I said, VDI is kind of expensive. So again, when you only have, you know, Cadillacs to offer from a car rental perspective, if you will, follow me with this analogy, you know, that Cadillac's not always going to be the best thing or the most cost-effective option for people. You know, and being able to offer that terminal services support and even Blade PC support for some of your high-powered users is going to go a long way in at least getting desktop virtualization adopted in larger droves within organizations. Next, they only run on their platform, and I mean, you can kind of understand why they would do that, trying to promote their market-leading platform, at least from a server perspective. But I think more and more people want choice. You know, I mean, from talking with numerous customers, they're interested in what Microsoft has. They may not want to, you know, completely change out every single platform or every instance of ESX, but they want to be able to take a look at it. And if you go with VMware View, you don't have that option or that chance. And then lastly, they kind of offer RDP, which is Microsoft's standard display protocol. It's not real great for providing a quality user experience. You know, RDP 7, which is, you know, works with Windows 7 and that operating system, has made some significant leaps and bounds and improvement. But again, if most organizations are still running XP or, you know, an earlier version of the Windows operating system, that functionality is not going to be available to them. You know, in all fairness to VMware, they do have a PC over IP option for improving that user experience and moving away from RDP, but you know, it's kind of expensive. There are things that need to be installed on both the client and the server side, and it's a bit unproven. There was a bit of hype probably early in the year when they announced this capability, and you know, it's kind of fallen down, especially when you consider the cost involved with you know, just deploying 1,000 virtual desktops via VDI anyways. Next, we'll kind of move on to Citrix. And as I mentioned before, Citrix is considered the market leader in this space. They are definitely by far the most expensive as well. They require the purchase of kind of multiple components to match the functionality that we offer via vWorkspace. So as I mentioned before, they have Citrix has taken Zen Desktop and kind of plugged Zen App into it and said, okay, well, that's Zen Desktop. So that still acts like 2 different products. And there are multiple management consoles. And then you have to kind of add in another product called Provisioning Server from them to kind of match our functionality. So again, you get 3 different products. You've got upwards of 6 to 8 management consoles. And this is where a lot of that complexity complaint comes from. As I mentioned, they're expensive, and this is not only the initial license, but the ongoing maintenance. You know, there's a cost of $50 per user for software assurance, and that's really just product updates. That's no support. Quest offers first-year premium support and maintenance as part of the product. So we want to make sure that these people get deployed properly, you know, and smoothly, and get a working environment before we're going to start charging them. You know, an additional charge for Citrix is these support charges. So, and they call them incidences. So every single support call is considered an incident. And so, you buy these in kind of packages, if you will. There are a package of 25 normal during normal business hours is 7,500. That shouldn't be a dollar sign. It should be a number of instances. But you can also buy 50 incidences, and you can have that 24 by 7, but it's going to cost you $25,000. So again, thinking about, okay, how many of these packages am I going to have to buy? And no, they don't carry over to the next year. So if you bought a 50 incident package and you used 3 and you didn't use it for the rest of the year, you're out of that $25,000. And then lastly, we often hear from customers that it's complex to set up and maintain. And often organizations have to hire a Citrix administrator. I mean, this was even needed in the terminal services days to kind of run that environment, which adds just more expense to the project. And by the way, Quest has displaced Citrix in at least 10 accounts in the past 2 quarters of this year. So I think we're starting to see that people are saying, hey, this is expensive. There's a lot of moving parts. There might be a better way. And, this can be an opportunity for Quest and vWorkspace. Next, I just wanted to touch on this briefly. This is one of our better case studies. Donna Independent School District represents about 3,600 PCs, and they came to us and they said, hey, here are our critical needs. We want to reduce student desktop costs. It was costing them a lot of money to run around fixing these machines and replacing those machines as well. They wanted to double the number of classroom computers. So they had like 2 in each classroom, trying to intermingle the PC learning environment to that classroom. But when there's only 2 and you got a classroom of 30, it's tough. So they wanted to get 4 in those classrooms, yet keep these costs down. They were looking to centralize desktop management, improve security. They didn't want, they wanted to make sure that these kids weren't able to access, sensitive sites or let's see. I'm trying to think of another example. Nothing's coming to me off the top of my head, but I know security was a huge concern for them. They also wanted these kids to be able to access like homework and specific intranet sites within the organization and be able to do that stuff from home. And in a desktop virtualization environment provided by us gave them that opportunity. So what were some of the results? They saved $60,000 a year in reduced energy costs. The big one was they reduced maintenance costs by 50%. And they were saving $200,000 a year in just maintenance costs. They improved the reliability, security, and instructional uptime. So again, no longer did they have to have help desk staff come in, interrupt a class to fix a computer. It could all be done remotely, and the reliability was just improved tenfold. And then obviously we were able to double the number of student desktops because of these savings, and now it's a much more manageable environment. So next, sales reps always ask me, okay, who do I need to talk to? I've kind of broken this out a little bit. So to me, the real question I say is, ask of whoever you're talking to, who owns the desktops within that organization. Now, that person's typically going to have the title of desktop management staff of some sort. Desktop administrator could be an IT manager. The CIO, ultimately, it depends on how involved he or she might be in kind of some of the problems that are traditionally presented via physical desktop management, and or might be pushing the organizations to look at virtual ones. But those are kind of the major people. Other secondary targets that can help you get to these people would be enterprise IT infrastructure managers, staff, systems administrators, architects, and sometimes security-related IT staff because of the security that the desktop virtualization function or project provides. Size of company, I often get asked this question, are you seeing a larger uptake with larger organizations, smaller one, mid-size? And I'm here to say it's really across the board. We've seen small organizations, ready to dive headfirst into this, and we've had large organizations looking to do this in, the 3,000 to 5,000 virtual desktop arena. Now, there are some industries that seem to have kind of latched on to this desktop virtualization idea more than others. Healthcare would be one, hospitals in particular. Education, as we had in our example, and that would be both K through 12 as well as colleges. DoD, defense, financial, insurance, these are the verticals that we've seen the largest uptake in. Next, it's, what kind of questions can I ask to get the conversation started? Knowing how many physical desktops are within that company is good to know. One, because we can start to talk about some of the savings that they can have. Are they on a 3-year refresh cycle, what have you? What do they use to manage those desktops today? Do they have an Alteris? Do they have an SMS? Are they pushing out applications via those systems today? Are they looking at maybe a better way? Asking them if they have embarked or are looking to have an application virtualization project. Asking the straight up question, do you have a VDI desktop virtualization project, and are you looking at that? Is that a 2011 initiative? Another question to ask is, do they have Citrix or do they have a terminal services deployment? Again, this might be the lever to help us get in the door. Almost every customer I've talked to is tired of paying what they call the Citrix luxury tax. And, when we touched on some of the expenses of that earlier, vWorkspace, if this is the way to get in the door, vWorkspace could be a perfect complement or a replacement to Citrix from a terminal services perspective, and then have the path towards VDI when and if they're ready, or application virtualization. And then I always stop with this one. It's like, look, if whoever you're talking to doesn't know the answers, asking that person who would, is always a good practice, just to try and get to the right person. Next, I wanted to put up here, and I only have one more slide, I think, after this, and we can come back to this one. But I wanted you guys to see, where you can get at some more information. And again, whether those are our web pages with general information, we've got a whole demo page set up, and there's no registration required to see demos of various different things with vWorkspace on a host of platforms. There is evaluation software that we offer. We've got numerous upcoming webcasts and events, as well as recorded ones, so you can go in here and see what we've done as well. We've got kind of some of these how-to videos. We call them whiteboard sessions. And this is how to solve common problems in the desktop virtualization arena. They're meant to be quick hit, 5-10 minutes, that kind of thing. We've got those set up. We've got numerous case studies on, happy customers who were thrilled with what we were able to offer and save them. And then we've got 2 white papers, one, kind of walking through where can you expect to get the return on investment in this desktop virtualization space. I actually wrote this paper, so I titled it kind of a best bet for a dwindling IT budget, where the actual savings, and it helps you walk through where those areas of savings are. And the last white paper that we have is, it was written in conjunction with ESG, which is Enterprise Strategy Group, which is a kind of a boutique analyst firm, where it's titled Concept Becomes Reality with Quest. But essentially what this paper is about is saying VDI is not the only answer, and that for, if you're really looking to virtualize large numbers of your employees or users, that you know, doing VDI for all of those is going to be a very expensive way to reduce costs or try to reduce costs and reduce administrative expenses. So looking to do some terminal services, others blade PCs, well, you know, maybe even others application virtualization is just going to be a key way to approach this market. And that paper really kind of articulates that with some research from the ESG group. And then lastly is kind of contact, additional information type stuff. I can oscillate between these two if you want. But that's kind of all I had, and you know, maybe we can open it up for questions for the next 15 minutes or so.
Well, Damon, thank you so much for that great presentation and that great overview to VDI. I did get a question here about whether or not the presentation would be made available, and we will make that available to everyone. In the meantime, if anyone has any other questions, would like to pick Damon's brain here for a few minutes on VDI or any of the information that was presented, please enter your questions, and we'd be happy to get those answered for you. I also have a call to action, and so this goes kind of hand in hand with the resource links that Damon offered. We do encourage you to visit Quest's website for vWorkspace. And here at Lifeboat Distribution, we also offer what we call the Quest Partner Community Portal. You can log on to this portal. It has updated content for Quest vWorkspace. So you can jump in there anytime and find relevant information for Quest vWorkspace that I'm sure you will find useful and helpful. You can always contact me. I am happy to help schedule deep dive demos with Quest. So if you're interested in what you saw today, but you would like to learn a little bit more of the technology, give me a call. I'd be happy to set those demos up for you. And of course, we're all here to help you with any opportunity and provide you with pricing and pre-sales assistance. I also do want to mention that our channel manager from Quest Software is Pamela Jorgensen. Pamela was not able to join us on for today's presentation, but certainly Pamela is available to answer any partner questions you may have, and Pamela is a great resource for you as well. So I'm going to take one more look here for questions. Let me see what we have. Damon, I'm not seeing any additional questions, so I guess we can wrap it up at this point. If anyone does think of questions afterwards, again, please feel free to reach out to me by email or with a telephone call, and we will make sure that we get your questions answered promptly. So, with that, I want to thank you all again for attending today's presentation. We have recorded this presentation, and it will be available on our website on the Quest landing page. So please refer your colleagues that could not attend today's webinar to view this webinar at their convenience. We do hope to hear from you very soon, but for now, for everyone here at Lifeboat Distribution and Quest Software, I want to say thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great one. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.